Yeah, so this was where we stopped last time, page 50. We'll start from the last line. Alarmed by the sorrow dragging her at her feet. So all this, as it is clear to us from the last readings also, Sri Aurobindo describes the evolution of consciousness. And here he describes earth as the goddess, earth goddess, as if it's like she's a conscious being who is evolving through all these eons and centuries. And we will see that how, since we are also earth nature, we are made of earth nature, our nature is earth. And we will see that there are so many places where we relate with it, whatever lines Sri Aurobindo says about the evolution of earth as a conscious being, we relate with that as an individual also, just like a microcosm and a macrocosm. So it's like a big universe and a smaller universe, and we have parallels here. We will see how on the process of our spiritual path, how we are dragged again and again by the pull of our tendencies, of our inertia, the base inconscience, and yet we continue to go on. So it's really amazing that what he shares here about the earth goddess, the conscious earth being, it's exactly what we go through as human beings. And it seems to me that, again, just sharing my own reflections only here, that it seems that maybe, imagine that there is a humongous being, as if collective mind, collective vital, collective physical, and that is the earth conscious being. And then we are each drop of it. Each of us is a drop of it. So that's why more of a responsibility, almost a social responsibility, to work for our own inner change. Because if we don't collaborate for this change, then there is no hope for this painful labor of new birth. So let's go ahead to the beautiful lines coming ahead. Although, mother says that destination is only one, destination is divine, yet you choose, since everything is based on free will, we choose at what pace we want to progress. Do we want to give in to the ego and don't care about serving the divine? And whenever we are ready, we collaborate, not for the ego but for the inner calling. And that is what mother calls the straight path or the sunlit path, where out of our own experiences, knowing that it is futile to serve the ego, we decide that no matter how difficult it is, let me serve the call within, rather than again and again falling a prey to the egoic consciousness. So let us start from the last line, page 50. Yeah, whoever feels ready, alarmed by the sorrow dragging at her feet.
Alarmed by the sorrow dragging at her feet, and conscious of the high things not yet won, ever she nurses in her sleepless breast an inward urge that takes from her rest and peace.
Yeah, thank you. So this conscious being, earth goddess, she's alarmed by the sorrow dragging at her feet. So she's as if, imagine that a person is wanting to go ahead and he's dragged by the chains, as if there are chains on his feet covering his ankles, and they're dragging him down, they're slowing down the progress. And that is what the drag that we feel on this path, that yes, we have read so much, we attend so many workshops, listen to so many discourses, and we feel that yes, we have understood it. But when it comes to action, our nature, our tendencies, our patterns, as if they drag us down. That is what Sri Aurobindo calls as the neither members, the mind, the vital, and the physical. They're not yet ready to be pulled high up. And yet that is their destiny. They have to be pulled high up. So she's alarmed by the sorrow dragging at her feet. and conscious of the high things not yet won. So she also knows of her higher possibilities. We also know that, yes, the mind can be refined. We also know that the emotional nature can be refined. And yet we fall a prey again and again to trivialities. What becomes such important at many occasions. We give little trivia so much of importance and lose ourselves in those stories. And this pull of downward pull is also because of the base of the matter is inertia. There is inertia at the material level. So it pulls us down, thick density of this inconscient layers. And as if it's like a pain, one feels this pain going on this path that, oh my God, I understand so much, but why do I fail again and again repeatedly when it comes to relating, maybe in relationships, at workplace, making out in manifestation, the expression of that life. We suffer there, we feel this ache there. And yet we are aware of our higher possibilities at the same time too. And conscious of the high things not yet won. Ever she nurses in her sleepless breast. So as if this pain that, yes, here lies my higher possibilities, and yet I'm still in the drain. It brings us a pain. There is a pain there. Ever she nurses in her sleepless breast an inward urge that takes from her rest and peace. So being aware of our higher possibilities and yet seeing ourselves fall again and again a prey to lower consciousness, she sees this inward aspiration towards growth, which takes away from her all rest and peace. That yes, that is my possibility. I will be there. It's like this inner aspiration, fire is pushing her ahead and ahead. And it's taking away from her rest and peace. Because, once we are aware of our possibilities, what is possible for man while being alive as a mortal on earth, then it feels very weird where we find ourselves. Why are we still at such lower inconscient levels, living a life there? So she nurses this inward urge to go ahead, which takes away her rest and peace, which brings her a little bit of discontent, which Jiddu Krishnamurti also talks about discontent. And he says that we must actually nurture this discontent, because it's only by acknowledging the discontent that we move towards our higher possibilities. If we are content with the ordinary consciousness, then there is no further movement possible, settled with our comfort zones. But only when I see my higher possibilities, and yet again and again I find myself in lower consciousness, then there comes this discontent. And according to masters, it's an auspicious discontent. One must have it, because that is what pushes us ahead. Yeah. So anything on these lines, any reflections?
True, at every stage when we, especially in my case, I'm saying that after all human, right? So we just say something or do some things, and the others in the house know that I'm following the spiritual path. So they'll say, what is the difference? I should be actually asking that question, but they will ask, what is the point in all your, spirituality or your meditation? But what I'm learning now is like it is impossible to be perfect, and at least every step, if I'm conscious, yes, I've done this, I could have done better. And the next time before I say or do something, pause and see, is this the best that I can, react or say? I think that helps along the way.
Yeah, absolutely with you. And I think it's beautiful to have people who again and again, yet and again, kind of make these remarks also, that what is the benefit of you being on spiritual path if you are still there? Because that is what keeps us going. Otherwise mother would say that don't get too satisfied with yourself, that okay, I have progressed enough. So it's beautiful that there are people around us, and we also, through our own power of reflection and contemplation, we see that, yes, I could have done better. I could have behaved better. And I think there is a joy, a certain joy in that. If we take it in a positive way, there is a joy in recognizing our own weaknesses, because then it pushes us ahead towards more and more clarity, kindness, and understanding. So, yeah, absolutely with me. And Kabir ji also says, Nindak nire rakhiye angan kuti chavai. So he says that keep your people who criticize you very close to you, because they are the ones who would be.
That's so true.
Yeah. Without the need of any shower gel or soap, they are the one who would be cleaning you and making you more supple. Yeah. Yeah. Any more comments, reflections, anyone? Okay, so I'm assuming there are none. Okay, let's go ahead then. We'll just continue yellow lines.
Yeah, ignorant and weary and invincible, she seeks through the soul's war and quivering pain, the pure perfection her marred nature needs, a breath of Godhead on her stone and mire.
Yes, thank you. So at the moment, this is how we feel. This is the collective, this is the earth consciousness. She is ignorant. We are ignorant. We are also weary. There is at times there is a kind of a tiredness, eons and years and lifetimes of inner work. And yet we find us back there again. So there is a weariness, at times there is this tiredness of your own self, that I'm tired of my own self, our own patterns, tendencies, which keep on in a loop, as if, they keep on, as if default, they have so much of battery that they keep on repeating themselves. Ignorant, weary, and invincible. So there is also this invincibility there, that yes, there are failures on the way. There are so many pitfalls, downfalls. There's so many traps. And yet there is a kind of an invincibility of this human spirit, which keeps us going, especially if you check out these stories of people going through really limb amputations, severe diseases, and even then we see their spirit shining. So there is this kind of an invincibility even after having all this ignorance and tiredness almost of these mechanical tendencies and patterns to which we are slave mostly. So this earth goddess, earth, the conscious being of earth, she's ignorant, weary, and invincible. And this aspiration, the fire of aspiration, the urge to go ahead, keeps her invincible. She seeks through the soul's war and quivering pain the pure perfection her marred nature needs. So as if her nature is a spoiled nature, it's very imperfect nature. That is what we see with our own self, our tendencies, our mental limitations, our way of reacting, behaving. They're so limited, narrow, full of ignorance, and as if they are pampered over centuries. Very imperfect instruments. So she seeks, what is she seeking through all this pain and kind of a struggle? What is she seeking? She's seeking this perfection of her nature. This is where, again, we would connect with integral yoga of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, that it is not about nirvana or mukti. It's about beginning at nirvana and then transforming the instruments of nature, the mind, the vital, developing the powers within which are available to humankind. They are not alien to us. They are our own powers. So this pure perfection of her marred nature needs a breath of Godhead on her stone and mire. So all this thing that we are drenched with the lower consciousness. And what this neither members or the lower consciousness needs, it needs this illumining light. It needs the touch of spirit. It needs, as if, the blessing of the Godhead, which has to be first awakened within our inner temple And then slowly the instruments have the effect also. So this is all that she craves for. That's why this journey of continuing labor pains have been going on. Almost it can be said that we just have to continually give birth to ourselves. So it's okay to go through pain and whatever comes on the way. Even at collective level, the earth has to go through all this, has been going through all this since centuries, trying to awaken the Godhead within man. So mire is a dirty kind of dirt, it's like really smelly and not a kind of a clear dust, it's like dirty dust. So our nature is full of this dirtiness, imperfection, and that is what we are seeking. We are seeking for more truth, clarity, and light on our own nature. Yeah. So anything on these, please unmute and share.
Yeah, again, this lines, no, these lines, weary, invincible, and yeah, mod nature, everything reminds me of that prayer we discussed on Tuesday, no? That November 25th, 1913 prayer. Mother said, actually, it's a terrible wastage of time, yeah. This weary, this word, I mean, reminded me of that prayer, actually, prayers and
I'm sorry, I was unmuting myself and I muted you. Chitraji, please go ahead. Yeah, please unmute yourself. Are you able to unmute, Chitraji?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Sorry,
Okay,
wrong
okay.
button pressed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no
Please
problem.
continue. Yeah.
No, this line, no, weary and actually quivering pain and mod, everything reminded me of that prayers and meditation. This week we discussed, no, about November 25th and 1913. Yeah, Mother said that it is a terrible wastage of time to deal with all this, again, repetitive things. Yeah, this weary and soul's war and quivering pain, mod nature, everything reminded of that prayer, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And it's really amazing how we call all these patterns of behavior, my desires, my ambitions, and we kind of are attached so much blindly with them. And that's why we serve most of the lifetime is gone as a slave to all these patterns and tendencies. Yeah, please, Raviji, you want to share something?
Yeah, I just I just felt that the word invincible was, I mean, Sri Aurobindo knew what he was writing. I felt it out of place there. I don't know. You explained it, but no, ignorant and weary, I understand. On all the other things, marred nature. It's all our limitations and drawbacks. Invincible is a very positive word, a very, a dynamic word where.
So, Raviji, why are you finding it out of place?
Yeah, I find it out of place in this paragraph. Why invincible is a very positive word, isn't it? Yeah.
So
you say something is invincible.
Yeah. So I believe that this is only in a positive sense only, that even after so much of weariness and ignorance, and again repeated defeats, there is something in her which is propelling and pushing her forward and forward. So there is an invincibility there. Yeah, that is what I feel. But maybe if
even the first time when you explained it, that's what you said.
Yeah,
that makes sense. But yeah, he definitely knew what he was doing. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
It could also mean, it says that it's so, invincibility is what? It's something very powerful, very strong. So ignorant, fury, and invincible in the sense, if you want to take it in the negative context or other way, it is so powerful and dragging us down, kind of.
Must be. That is correct.
In that sense, I've said that.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
That's right.
And weary and invincible. You cannot escape from that. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any more reflection?
I just wanted to ask this question.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about ambition, right? See, this is something which I have thought otherwise, even without this context. That so this is also ambition, right? The ambition for you know, for going within, or for the divine, you know, or to manifest the divine in our body. These are all ambitions as well, right? So so that so what I'm trying to say is that you know, our ego is also getting satisfied by these desire, by these ambition, if they get fulfilled. But is it like, you know, this is the higher vital that we had talked about in that other class? Hello?
Yes, Priya. Yeah. So, what I would relate this with, for example, mother distinguishes between desire and aspiration. And she says that, I think I'll have to find out the exact text from mother's words also. But she says that even if you want to have a desire, have the desire for the divine. So the highest possible. So you're right. I would say that when you're saying that even if you want to have an ambition, desire for the highest, the divine. Now, what would happen in the process, I believe, is that ego can never get the divine. That is the beauty. Ego can have ambition for the divine. You know, you must have heard that couplet from Kabir. I don't know, I'll translate it in English also. Jab main tha, tab hari nahi. Ab hari hai to main nahi. है ना? So when, even if we start with an ambition of the ego to have the divine, because ego is ignorant, it imagines that I would be clasping or grasping the divine, as if divine is something smaller than me. According to the ego, everything is smaller than I. Yeah. So on this process, the blows and all the things that we get, it kind of dissolves and does it work on the ego. So that is why I am just again sharing my own reflection, and I would invite others also to share anything. So that is why mother says that even if you want to have an aim, have the highest possible aim. See how wide and generous and supple that aim is. And depending on the quality of aim will depend the quality of your life. So somehow I think the divine is so amazing, like we call it divine comedy, that even if the little ego wants to say that, okay, I'm having ambition for the divine, sooner or later, the divine will do its work on the ego, which is the dissolution of the ego. So on this process, with the touch of that divine light or grace, the work will be done. So it would never be that the ego gets the divine. That is not possible. Either the divine is or the ego is. But we start with the ego, because since we are egoistic beings, so that is the darkness to light journey that we have to travel, I believe. That we have given ourselves to the ego consciousness, and slowly, as we suffer and go through all kinds of pain, we realize that it's not the best way to give, and we give ourselves to the divine rather than to the ego. Yeah, so we can start with that, I would say, and through all the blows and whatever thapedas of life we will get, sooner or later we will realize what is to be done.
And also, in this yoga, mother once asked the disciples, it seems, actually, why do you want to do this yoga? For you want to become greater person, greater yogi? What is there any ambition in you? No, you can't do this yoga with that ambition. You should surrender yourself to divine, and the divine will take the yoga and do for you. You have to just open yourself. There your ego will go. There won't be any ambition, because we will do the yoga only for the sake of the divine, not for ourselves. It is after one stage. Maybe beginning, as Monica explained, it will be there, but after one stage, my mother clearly mentioned, actually, it is only for the sake of the divine you are doing the yoga, not for anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, there are so many traps in Savitri. Also there is mention of so many traps in between where we get stuck. at any point on this yoga, we can get stuck in the ego consciousness again and again, again and again. And that's why vigilance is the key also, that we need to be very, very vigilant of our intentions of working. Because at any point of time, the ego can, kind of an illusion, like a mirage, it props up again and it just overwhelms you and crowds your life. And we are not even aware that we are working through an ego. And a spiritual kind of an ego will be a more harder ego to crack. A more material ego is easy to crack, but a spiritual ego is even more harder. Yeah. Please go ahead.
I think we start with our little mind, and as an ambition, like all of us, we seek it. I'm sure, like as we go further, this journey takes us to that, this path where ego and the word ambition also. Like I think it. I'm sure, like whoever has reached that point, when they look behind, they would understand. Ki, oh my God, what petty, like words, ambition and all that. Like I think, but yeah, to start with, we all seek and like we feel like, okay, yeah, this is the path we want to now start. But gradually, I think with the the divine help and with your sincerity, whatever, like like we will reach a point where ambition and all will feel like so petty.
Absolutely. I think that you have touched this topic again, Shweta. How we live in ordinary life is that we are living with this sense of lack, and again through either work or relationships, we are trying to fulfill that lack. So when we approach the spiritual path, there also the game has not changed. We approach it with the lack only. So that is the base camp or the starting point. But as Shweta was sharing, that through our own sincere attempts again and again, through our own understanding and reflections, something transforms. And then we stop to operate from this sense of lack and trying to fulfill us, rather than being at the feet of the Lord or at the service of the divine. Contentment comes as a byproduct of that. Yeah. Aspriya.
Yeah. No, okay.
Anything?
No, nothing.
Okay. So, here Sri Aurobindo again and again also, in many, many lines, he talks about this fire of aspiration of earth being, that no matter how slow it is, no matter how many failures it has to go through, no matter how much of pain of labor it has to go through, it has been trying to give itself a new birth since centuries. And that is why we came across this word of, that it's not defeated, it's not giving up, that, oh my God, the pressure of tendencies and inconscience is too much, I give up. It's not saying that. So in that manner, it's undefeatable, it's invincible, this urge that moves the earth consciousness. Yeah, so let us move ahead then. I think we can take it all together. Maybe this.
A faith she craves that can survive defeat, the sweetness of a love that knows not death, the radiance of truth forever sure. A light grows in her, she assumes a voice. Her state she learns to read and the acts she has done. But the one needed truth eludes her grasp, herself and all of which she is the sign.
Yeah, thank you, Mohanji. So as if we see, even if we talk about the ego consciousness, what is really ego seeks? Ego seeks rest. Ego is seeking contentment. It's like, imagine that you have a sponge ball in your hand, a compressible sponge ball in your hand. And the moment you compress the ball tightly, clutch it in your hands, all that the tension seeks is a liberation from the tension. So the moment you release the tension, the ball is the full size again. Now, ego egoistic state of being of our own life is like that tension in which we live, a continuous tension. And all that the ego seeks is a liberation from the tension. It's a relaxation of the tension. Although in our ignorance, we seek it through means which are only temporary. For example, I may enter into entertainment, or maybe drugs or substances, or maybe relationships. I may get addicted to anything. And all that I'm seeking through those addictions is a liberation from my tension. Yeah. So ultimately, this last line in yellow, a breath of Godhead on her stone and mire, this hardness of the ego, the neitherness of the ego, all that it seeks is light, illumination, clarity, relaxation. So although at times we may think of ego as the enemy or falsehood, and yet all it seeks is a liberation from itself. So it's almost like a poor fellow drenched in ignorance, and it does not know which way should I seek for this liberation. In our ignorance, we don't know what way is the right way. A faith she craves that can survive defeat. So in this process of eons of pains of labor, trying to give birth to our own self, to also the earth parallelly, what she needs is a faith so solid that it is unshakable faith. And why is this unshakable faith needed? Because the defeats will be many, many. Defeats will be many, many. There would be umpteen number of failures. And just like an infant learns to walk, when we see a little child from crawling to now he's standing and falling again and standing and falling again and standing, then learning to walk, 2 steps, fall again, 2 steps, fall again. This is what we call the invincibility. Like he does not actively know this urge, but he has this urge to get up and try again, get up and try again. And this is why we need solid faith. The earth needs a solid faith that she craves, which can survive defeat. Because we cannot avoid defeat. The path is really long and arduous. The sweetness of a love that knows not death. And what kind of a love it is needing? It's needing a kind of love which is not dependent on external situations. That only if that person's love me, then only I feel content and fulfilled. It needs the love of our true self. Masters have said that we are made of love. Our essence is love. Love is our being. Our true nature is love. But where is it? Where is it? Where is it to be found? And that love gives us the courage, fearlessness, when we get in touch with our own essence. That is what it seeks. It seeks a sweetness of a love which does not know death. It is like immortal. It does not depend on dying and living. It is just there, not touched by mortality. It needs radiance of a truth, forever sure. How we come across truth in our life is relative truths. That, okay, this is true today. And 2 years later, I find out some other half truth, which appears to be more truer. So we move from one little light to a greater light, and then a little more light. Half truth, a little half truth. What she craves is a radiance of a truth which is forever sure. It craves for an absolute truth in which all the opposites harmonize. What Sri Aurobindo talks when he talks of supramental world or the supermind, where all the opposing things, they unify themselves. Such is the power of truth consciousness. That is what it seeks to manifest here in the mortal realm. She craves for a faith that can survive defeat. She craves for a sweetness of love, which is beyond mortality. And she craves for a radiance of truth, which is absolute, which is forever sure, which is not full of doubt, how we are full of doubt, when we work through our own minds. A light grows in her and she assumes a voice. So how we evolve, that this human consciousness that we have, It's a self-aware consciousness. An animal has limitations in its consciousness, but when we go a little step ahead in growth of consciousness, we have human beings, so-called more evolved. So we have this power of looking at our own tendencies, our own patterns, our own movements, and hence the power of self-mastery, which an animal does not have. You know, this self-reflection, contemplation, which we slowly begin to learn to do. You know, it's not that we are born with it. We have to slowly inculcate more and more, nurture this self-reflection kind of a living in our life. A light grows in her. She assumes a voice. So as a human being, I can express myself. You know, there are more ways of expression as a human being when we talk about consciousness of an animal, plant, or a human being. So if we compare, we see that human beings are more able to express themselves. She assumes a voice. Her state, she learns to read, and the act she has done. We have the power to read our own inner states and also the states of others. How we can, for example, read that, okay, maybe the other person is not in a nice mood. Or maybe understand other person's patterns of behavior as well as I do my own. So this reading of things is something very unique to human beings, conscious reading. An animal may also sense the emotional movement, but animal is not very conscious of that reading. We are consciously aware of that reading, observation, and the act she has done. So there is this power of self-reflection that we have. You know, mother says that whenever we go to sleep after the day, you know, towards the night, it's very good to reflect on all the things that we have done, the act that we have done. Now, again, if we talk about animals and plants, again, we don't see that capacity of self-reflection there. So this is the evolution of earth consciousness as she's trying to manifest the Godhead in the mortal realm. Her state, she learns to read, and the act she has done. But the one needed truth eludes her grasp. Herself, and all of which she is the sign. And yet, even after this consciousness, evolution of consciousness, there is one thing which still eludes our grasp, and that is our own true nature. That is our own realization of self, who we truly are. That still eludes us. Why are we born? What is the purpose of my existence? What is the nature of my true self? That still eludes the human consciousness and collectively the earth consciousness. Yeah. Yeah. So please, if there are reflections, I'll mute myself. Please share if there anything. Okay, so in absence, we'll just move ahead. Yeah, anyone who feels ready.
An inarticulate whisper drives her steps, of which she feels the force but not the sense. A few rare intimations come as guides. Immense divining flashes cleave her brain, and sometimes in her hours of dream and muse, the truth that she has missed looks out on her, as if far off and yet within her soul.
Yeah, thank you. So beautiful lines again, you know, how we are compelled to move forward on this journey. Now, although this truth, the truth of our being, it eludes our grasp. It cannot, you know, we cannot catch it really. We may have glimpses of it, but we really cannot catch it like, okay, I've got it today, you know, not like that. So how she moves forward, an inarticulate whisper drives her steps. That is what we call this inner calling, inner voice. And we see that it's most of the time, it's working from the veils behind the curtains. It's like a whisper, and that too very inarticulate. It's not expressing itself clearly. So we ourselves are unaware of our callings and intentions, and yet we move forward. Something propels us to move. An inarticulate whisper drives her steps, of which she feels the force. So we feel that, yes, there is something driving me. There is some compulsion of moving forward that I feel, but not the sense. I truly don't get it. I cannot say that, yes, I know the meaning of my existence or moving forward on my path. Although we are compelled, all of us, no matter how ignorant we may be, we feel this drive to move ahead in whatever way our life moves, of which she feels the force, but not the sense. A few rare intimations come as guides. And how do we get close to this inarticulate whisper? We have these rare glimpses which come as guides, insights, illuminations that, yes, the way to go, this is the way, this is the truth, go ahead. So we have these intuitive insights and feelings in between, but they are rare. It's not that our 24 hours are full of it. A few rare intimations come as guides. Immense divining flashes cleave her brain. So as if she's split into two. Such revelatory intuitions come at times, as if she's cut into two parts, left side alag and the right side alag. Immense divining flashes cleave her brain, and which are beyond the mind, which are not graspable by the mind. And sometimes in her hours of dream and muse, this can be connected with what we read earlier last time. This when life's cherished guests are left outside, when we give ourselves time for this inner deep contemplation, silent quietude and contemplation, in those silent inner communion hours, sometimes in her hours of dream and muse, at times in dreams also, the truth that she has missed looks out on her, as if far off and yet within her soul. So that is the paradox of truth, masters have said. It appears it's very, very close. It's here, right here, next to me, with me. And yet it appears very far off, as if one has to travel there. So that is the paradox of truth, that at times when we have these rare intimations, touch of our own true essence, we feel very intimate with it, and yet we feel really kind of far from it also, because the wideness it is, the vastness it is, our ordinary nature is just a point in front of that. So it also appears very far, and yet paradoxically it is our true nature. Yeah, any reflections here, please?
It does come in introspection. I mean, as a introspection. Like when you were explaining, I was just thinking of this. The twin tower blast happened, right? Like how many people said that in retrospect that they had to go, but something pulled them towards something else. A dog did something, or they didn't understand, but they were probably their karma was not enough or whatever reason they chose not to go, or they chose to leave the building. So later they figured that there was something that from inside that was guiding us. That's the flash that I got.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. And also, these signals are always available. It's just that we are so lost in our own thoughts and agendas that we miss out on these signals. So the more and more we become sensitive and more relaxed and content and silent within our being, it's easier to understand and follow these little flashes as you were describing with that example. Beautiful. Anyone else? Okay, so I'll just move ahead. Yeah, anyone who feels ready, please.
A change comes near that flees from her surmise, and ever postponed compels attempt and hope, yet seems too great for mortal hope to dare. A vision meets her of supernal powers that her as of mighty kinsmen lost, approaching with estranged, great, luminous gaze.
Yeah, thank you. So in this toil of painful labor pains, many a times, as if it appears that the earth is just next to a bright change or a new birth, next to it, just on the verge of that change. A change comes near that flees from her surmise. So it's like beyond all the limited guesses one can make. It's very close. And yet, an ever postponed compels attempt and hope. So, as if, it's like when Sri Aurobindo says here that when the neither members are not ready, no matter the change is very, very close, as if something pulls us back again. The neither members are not ready. Maybe the mind is not ready. The vital, some movement of vital is not ready. The physical being has a lot of inertia. It calls its backward. So something or the other is not ready, and it is kind of pulled backward again, yet again, on the verge of change. And this also connects here with Sri Aurobindo's labor, God's labor, the poem. I'll just read the lines. All that was found must again be sought. Each enemy slain revives. Each battle forever is fought and refought through vistas of fruitless lives. A voice cried, go where none have gone. Dig deeper, deeper yet, till thou reach the grim foundation stone and knock at the keyless gate. So such is the journey of our evolution from the darkness of the inconscience towards divine light, towards absolute divination of our existence. So something comes near, a new birth approaches, and then something is also pulling it back. And yet there is a kind of a hope which compels more and more attempts, no matter how many defeats are there. That it may be even a streak of hope, not that I'm full of hope, just a streak of hope is enough, which compels newer attempts towards the furtheration of the evolution. Yet seems too great for mortal hope to dare. And all these attempts, slow attempts of earth consciousness, our own attempts, it appears really like, really, can you dare that? Like still you would go ahead. How many defeats have you gone through? And one of the teachers that, we have been blessed to be in touch with, Acharya Prashant, he says that haroge tum karodon baar, but koi bhi haar tumhari aakhri na ho. So in English, it would mean that you will be defeated an umpteen number of times. Just make sure that no defeat is your last defeat. And I think it's beautifully connecting here when we talk about our own evolution, the evolution of earth as consciousness, that there would be many, many defeats. And still we go on and on and on. Since there is this seed of aspiration within us, each one of us, which compels us to attempt again and again. A vision meets her of supernal powers. So she is as if she witnesses that, yes, I'm capable of these higher powers. In Synthesis of Yoga, Sri Aurobindo describes that once we become aware of all these powers that are available to human beings, then that would become our normal. Right now, we feel that being limited as a human being, being very weak and powerless is what human is. But once we know our higher possibilities, taste each one of them, then that would become our normal. So a vision meets her of supernal powers. And these powers are for us. The divine has put these powers in manifestations for the human consciousness that draw her as if mighty kinsmen lost. And as we grow closer to these powers, you must have seen Hindi movies where two brothers are meeting after many, many years. They have been separated at birth, maybe. And they are saying, Bhaiya, Bhaiya, with a lot of familiarity, as if they belonged to each other. And they knew it even after not meeting. So that these powers, supernal powers, they draw her towards itself, as if mighty kinsmen lost, as if she knew that these are my own powerful powers, my own kinsmen that I lost on the way. So there is a sense of belongingness that, yes, it does not appear very alien to us when we get in touch with these powers, higher possibilities which are available for human existence. Approaching with estranged, great luminous gaze, so how the eyes would brighten up if two brothers are meeting, separated after birth. The eyes just brighten up. There is a strong sense of familiarity that yes, we belong to each other. Almost that kind, that is what I felt, that kind of a union with our own higher possibilities. And there is as if these powers are our own. That's why the word here, kinsmen, they're our own. They're very familiar and have been lost on the way. And we have never felt truly at ease being so limited and constricted and full of tension within ourselves. Yeah. So anything at this, please? Anyone?
Yeah, this is very beautiful. No, a change comes near that flees from her surmise. And sometimes you'll get a call, but you won't take it. No, that also came to my mind actually. A change comes near that flees from her surmise. That is the meaning, no, for that. It goes off.
Yeah, I'm sure it connects as well. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Because it is beyond our conception, limited conception. Yeah. Flees from our surmise.
Yeah. Thank you.
Even the second line, and ever postponed, compelled, attempt and hope. Like,
absolutely.
We all can relate to that.
Yeah. And no matter how defeated one may be feeling, we are compelled to that attempt. Beautiful.
Yes.
That's so true. Sometimes we keep on attempting, but sometimes you'll say, no, that this is the last, I'm not going to do it ever again. I don't want to face it. But something propels, and definitely that other word that also that it not be the last defeat. I think
absolutely. Beautiful.
Beautifully written, Mike.
Yeah. So let us take up these last few lines, and then we will. Or maybe we can take one more paragraph after this, the last, a joy that drags, not sorrow as its shade. So yeah, anyone who feels ready, then is she moved.
Then is she moved to all that she is not, and stretches arms to what was never hers, outstretching arms to the unconscious void. Passionate she prays to invisible forms of God, soliciting from dumb fate and toiling time what most she needs, what most exceeds her scope. A mind unvisited by illusion's gleams, a will expressive of soul's duty, a strength not forced to stumble by its speed, a joy that drags not sorrow as its shade.
Yeah, thank you. So as if she's stretching, how we stretch our arms in a prayer, that please kind of help us, guide us. Then is she moved to all that she is not. So these higher possibilities, this, a better future, more kindness and more compassion, all of it, we are not at the moment. We may be not at the moment collectively, and yet we are moved towards it. Then is she moved to all that she is not, and stretches arms to what was never hers. So as if we begin to slowly embrace our higher possibilities, our kind of a divinization of human being. In like a prayer, you implore the divine. In prayers and meditations, Mother says, I implore thee, O thou, O Lord, and stretches arms to what was never hers. Outstretching arms, maybe just a second. Yeah. Outstretching arms to the unconscious void. Passionate, she prays to invisible form of gods. So we may, again, whatever we talk about collective earth consciousness, earth as a conscious being implies to us also as individual being. Outstretching arms to the unconscious void. Now, we cannot see the divine. One can say that, yes, there is divine in each human being, but still, we cannot see. We want to see the divine. Okay, where is divine? Show me. So as if we are, if we look at earth and how it travels in the space, there is just this void where it travels, this black, dark space. Outstretching arms to the unconscious void, which appears unconscious. She prays to invisible forms of gods. So somewhere she is moved to praying. That more guidance, more light, just show me the path ahead. Passionate, she prays to invisible form of gods. Soliciting, imploring, kind of, yes, please give it to me. Soliciting from dumb fate and toiling time, what most she needs, what most exceeds her scope. So what we call for is something that we need, and something we may actually not be really prepared for. I may want an illumined mind, but am I prepared for the illumined mind? I may not be prepared for the illumined mind. I may not be prepared for the ananda of the divine. And yet I crave for that. I pray for that, because it is a struggle, living as an egoistic consciousness. It's a struggle. It's full of misery. So she needs, and what most exceeds her scope. So although she's aware that at the moment she's not it's like beyond her scope to get all those, and yet she's compelled to ask for those boons. What is she asking for? A mind unvisited by illusions gleams. So at the moment, our mind, what is the human mind? It is a very limited, half-lit mind. We have just little bit of streaks of light, which we consider as true. This is absolute truth. And that is why it is an illusion. It says a mind unvisited by illusions gleams. So she craves for a mind, she yearns for a mind which is not just fulfilled by illusory light, which is fulfilled by the absolute light, which is illumined mind, full of the truth consciousness, and not just craving, realizing that, okay, this half truth is the absolute truth. That is how we at the moment are. Any truth that we encounter, we think that, okay, this is the absolute. So it again gets very rigid and dogmatic. We are misled by that illusion of the gleam that we see, little streak that we see. A will expressive of soul's deity. At the moment, our will is marred by our desires, which we consider as our own, our impulses. And she prays, the earth nature prays for such kind of a will which serves the soul, which serves the divine, which is very sure and certitude of the divine it has, which is not full of doubt. Yeah. So which can be easily used as an instrument for the divine work. That kind of a will expressive of the soul's deity. A strength not forced to stumble by its speed. we also need the strength. It craves for a strength, prays for a strength, which is not stumbled by every little defeat. Every little defeat, and we are just swayed for some time, and then we gather up courage again, and then we can really go ahead a little bit. So she needs a strength, which is a very steady strength, like a rock solid strength. And that strength is the strength of our true self, the immortal, undying, unborn self. That is what she craves for. A strength not forced to stumble by its speed. And also how we grow in our consciousness, that many times we are full of joy and we are not able to contain that joy. It's just too much. The earth nature cannot contain that joy, that bliss. So we begin to move, we begin to dance so that we can express out that energy. Yeah. So it craves or prays for such kind of a strength, which is very solid, the solidity of inner self, the true self. A joy that drags not sorrow as its shade. How we go through these ups and downs of, joyful movements and then sorrowful movements, what Vedic Rishi would also call, the night and day in their own sadhana, the journey that they went through. And even now, on the path of yoga, how we go through these joys and sorrows, ups and downs. And why ups and downs are necessary? Because the moment we have an up for a long time, since the neither members are not ready, we need to have a down, so that they need some rest. They are not able to vibrate at that much of frequency for a long time. So it prays for that kind of a joy, which is not filled with the duality of sorrow. Yeah. And a strength which is not stumbled by the intensity of the strength. It can carry itself for a longer time. So these are what she asks for, she prays for to the unconscious void when she's praying to invisible forms of gods. And what happens when we pray? What happens when we outstretch our arms in prayers? We first of all ground ourselves. And it is the one who is praying which undergoes a change, who undergoes a change. So it's softening of our own ego consciousness, softening of our own nature that happens in the process of when we outstretch our arms to gods. Yeah, so if there are any lines, please share any reflections on this. After that, we'll call it a day.
That line, a joy that drags not sorrow as its shade, just now reminded me of a poem that I never understood in college. I think by John Keats, if I'm not mistaken, Ode on a Grecian, joy ever at his lips, bidding adieu. So I used to think, why joy would always be bidding adieu. But now, with this line, I'm able to understand back then what they were trying to teach.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
And also they say that be careful what you pray for, because my grandmother, mother, all of them would say, be careful what you pray for, because you'll always get it, they would say. But then we will fight with them saying, no, this is not what we asked for. They'll say, no, reflect. But they didn't have so much time to sit and teach us.
Yeah.
But they'll say that, the state that you are in today is what you prayed for. Think about it. But it's like opening up. I'm really glad.
Yeah.
What beautiful lines.
Beautiful.
You want to just keep reading the same thing again and again.
Beautiful. I think Mother also shares what you shared, Geeta ji. Mother shares that actually be careful what you ask for, but because many a times the divine grants you that, and you may get it after 2-3 years, but then you may have moved out of it. You may not want it anymore.
Yeah, you are so true.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? Anything?
Actually, this reminds me of a Tagore song.
Yeah.
Which has these two lines that, this body hold up. I mean, in Bengali, I'm not saying it is. I'm translating it in English.
Yeah.
So this body hold up and raise in your house of gods, make it me sacred flame. So our body is also not ready. I mean, the Bengali is very beautiful.
Would you like to say out in Bengali also? It would be nice to hear.
আমার এই দেহখানি তুলে ধরো তোমার দেবালয়ে সাথী করো. So that is the Bengali.
Beautiful.
And,
Yeah.
Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Devale, the inner temple.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, anyone else? Okay, great. So I assume that there is no further reflection. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, listening, and sharing your reflections. Thank you.